No expert, but that just looks nasty to me. Just a hair over 20. Not really what I wanted to see. That is a bunch of sludge in that motor. I see more clogged up spots than I do free spots. See the difference in them two? See how this green one that come out is flat and this one's new one's nice and round? If you're having oil pressure problems, I feel bad for your son. I got all kinds of problems, but oil pressure ain't one. I know you're probably in a hurry, so I'm gonna give you the too long didn't read version of this video. Having oil pressure problems, my oil pressure was dropping. I replaced the O-ring on the oil pickup tube, and I cleaned out my oil pan, new gasket, and we went from having about 20 PSI of oil pressure, now we're back up to 40. That's the too long didn't read, so if you're busy and that's all you wanted to know, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it. I don't want to waste your time. Now, if you want to see all the trouble that I went through to test this truck, is a 2003 Chevrolet Avalanche with a 5.3 liter. If you want to see all that, what I went through to fix it, then stay tuned. Stay tuned. I'm going to show you. Here's what we're at after fixing it. We're at about 35, 40 PSI. I've ran this motor for a little while, so this is the hot oil pressure, which is going to be a little bit lower than cold oil pressure. Previously, we was down to about 20. So stick around, and I'm going to show you all the trouble I had to go through to get this thing fixed. Get y'all in here and look at this plug. Let's see. It's going to be, that one right there is what I'm going to screw the oil pressure tester into. That should be coming right off the oil pump. So I'll get a general idea of what the actual oil pressure is at the pump. I like this little tool right here, little flashlight. It's magnetic, so you can stick it on whatever you're working on. Ain't that cool? Oh, let's see if I can maneuver up in here and get this out without making a mess. 5/16 inch Allen. I should be able to get it out the rest of the way. Come on now. There we go. I looked online and everything I've read says that's like a M16 1.5 something or another plug that goes on the side of the block, and all the oil test kits I kept finding stopped at M14. The one at Harbor Freight stopped at M14. I was going to get that one, but it would do no good. So we're going to see if the one I ordered off of Amazon will fit this. Joy fans. I guarantee you they make this same kit and sell it under 100 different names. All right. I bet you that's it. Nope, too big. Man, that looks like it. I think that's it. Let's give it a try. Worst case that happens, I just put oil all over the ground. Make sure that O-ring's on there. We're gonna have a nightmare. Is my light really going out right now? It can't make it 5 more minutes. Come on. I just want to get this filmed. All right, so I guess we're gonna do this in the dark. Y'all just gonna have to trust me. I'm threading this into the side of the block up there. Oh, come on now. This is probably metric, but a 3/4 inch wrench is gonna do it. We're gonna tighten that up and hope for the best. I was bragging on that light earlier. Now it's gonna make a liar out of me. All right. There's enough left where y'all can see. All right, it's just cruising to the side. I'm gonna plug that little oil tester. It's just got a quick disconnect on it. Y'all gonna have to trust me because I guess this thing's about dead. Yeah, that's what I get for bragging on something. Just a little bit. Come on. Really? I was made for it. All right, so here's the plan. This thing's been running about 40 pounds of oil pressure when I'm driving down the road. When I'm idling, about 30, 35. Recently, it's been dropping down to about 20 when I'm idling. And if I see a change like that, something's wrong. I think it's the O-ring in the oil pan. But before I do anything, I want to see what the actual oil pressure at the pump really is. So hopefully when I start this thing up, I have that fitting tight and the little quick disconnect on there good. And I don't wind up with about half the engine oil all over the floor. I don't know. Let's find out. I guess if I do make a mess, you're going to see it on the camera here. At least we'll get some good footage. Okay, well apparently that don't save pressure. I was hoping it was going to show the pressure when I got out here. All right, so here's what I got. The gauge is showing 40 PSI at idle. Maybe a hair less, maybe 39, 38. Probably gonna fall just a little bit as it warms up. Man, that's even less than what the gauge was showing. Normally it's about 40 when it's cold. Now it's showing 25. Maybe 30. No, that's about 25. That's really interesting. Because for the past few months, this thing's been showing 40 when I started up and it's cold. But now we're down to 25 or 30. Very strange. Y'all ever have a dog that you trained and you have them do this trick and you want to show somebody, and any other time the dog behaves and does the trick, but when you go to show it to somebody, the dog pretends like he don't know the trick and makes you look like a liar? That's what I feel like this thing's doing right here. This is weird. Normally when I drive this thing and I start it up and the oil pressure's cold, it's around 40. And it will run 40 down the road. And I come to a stoplight, it'll drop down to about 30, 35. It's only in the last couple of weeks has been dropping down to about 20 at idle. But every time I start it up and it's cold, it'll run 40. Well, just then it made a liar out of me. The gauge down here at the oil pump is showing 40, but the gauge cluster in the truck was showing about 25, which if I was to drive it down the road now, get the oil warm and let it come to a stop, I really don't know what it would be. So I guess the next step is to check it up here at the oil sending unit and see what it is up there. Because the only thing I know is if it's one of two things. Either the oil pressure really is dropping at the top of the motor, maybe worn cam bearings, or there's something with that sensor and that gauge cluster. But the only way to know is to check it. So I guess I'll do that. I'd like to point out that light that I was bragging on earlier that quit working when I was filming. It's working now. All right, plug's back in the bottom. Let's move to the top where the oil sending unit is and see what the pressure is up top. I got the oil pressure tester on the back where that sending unit comes out. So I'm gonna start it up and see what the pressure is up at the top. Now I don't even know what the difference really is supposed to be. I know there's supposed to be a pressure drop, but I'm really just more interested in seeing if that gauge that's reading 20 is really what the pressure is at the top of this motor. So let's find out. Nope. We're at about 25, 22. I don't know how well y'all can see this. That's from the top end of the motor. So about, I say, shit, it's falling. Just a hair over 20. Not really what I wanted to see and not what I expected. But it is what it is. Man, it's always something. I started not to film this because it's really just draining the oil out. But man, I wish I would have. When I pulled that plug, nothing came out at first, and then it was like a little chunk of jello came out, which is sludge, and then it all just started pouring. And it just looks, I don't know if you can see it on camera, but you can just kind of see the nastiness in that. The oil was changed like 2,000 miles ago, and you can see the newer oil mixed in with the sludge. I ain't no expert, but that just looks nasty to me. That might just be my problem. Too much sludge getting sucked up into the pump. Man, that does not look nice. Oh, there went a chunk. You can really see how the sludge is mixed with that newer oil. Let's see what the oil filter looks like. Damn, that thing wasn't even on there tight at all. I guess that will be coming down from the top of the motor after it's been filtered. So that looks a lot better than what's coming out of the oil pan. I think that just might be my problem, is it's sludged up. That looks a lot better than what's coming out of the oil pan. I did some digging online to look at the oil pressure, what this thing's supposed to have. And from what I gather, 20 is really not that bad. It's just that the way it's dropped so fast to 20 concerns me. So I need to put an oil pan gasket on this truck anyway. It's leaking. So I'm just gonna drop the pan, and we're gonna see if maybe that little O-ring up in there for that oil pickup tube might be our culprit. We'll just change it while I'm in there, and we'll see what it does to oil pressure. I mean, it can't hurt. Look how much stuff is on that oil pickup screen. I mean, it is clogged. I hope you guys can see this. It is bad. I don't really see much where oil could get through that. I see more clogged up spots than I do free spots. Check out this oil pan as well. Look at this thing. Now, I'd expect to find some sludge in this, but this thing looked like a septic tank. Can you see the drain plug back there in the back? See how very little of it's actually showing how it's buried under the sludge? That's probably why I had jello come out when I first opened it up. So I'm thinking that we could probably improve the oil pressure. In fact, I know we should be able to improve the oil pressure just by cleaning this thing out. Jesus. It's a few days later, y'all. I ain't had a chance to work on it, but I got to thinking about something, and sometimes it's better, I guess, to walk away. I was talking about this O-ring earlier. I said, you know, it's still pretty soft. I didn't see no tears in it. But have a look at that and tell me if y'all noticed something that should be pretty obvious, but I totally missed it. Look at the shape of it. You know, O-rings are supposed to be donut shaped. See how flat that is though, where it's been in that oil pump for so long? I just completely missed that the other day. You can see that one. See how round it is? Let's get it out of the bag so y'all can have a look at it. See the difference in them two? See how this green one that come out is flat and this new one's nice and round? And I got this off of Amazon, but I checked the Fel Pro website, and this is what they're showing for it, a 93. I know there's different colors, but this is a 72401 part number. Fel Pro is what they're showing for a 2003 Chevrolet Avalanche. And from what I've read, that even though the colors have changed, they've started just making them all black. There used to be, I think, a green, a red, and a black, and they're supposedly just making them all the same color now. But I guess sometimes it's better to walk away, because man, how did I miss that? I'm gonna try to get some of this sludge out of this pan before I clean it up. Oh yeah, that's chunky. What do y'all think? Look like blackberry pie filling? I think that might have affected my oil pressure a little bit. All right, guys, I finally got this thing cleaned out. It was way worse than I thought it was going to be. But after, man, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours of scrubbing in that vat, you can see it looks a lot better. All that sludge is gone from the bottom of this pan. I mean, it ain't perfect, but it is way better than it was. I went ahead and took out that low oil pressure sensor that was in the side. I had trouble starting a couple weeks ago with it saying that there was low oil, and I think all it was this thing was just sludged up, and I cleaned it off a little bit, but since I've got this far into it, I just went ahead and got a new sensor. It's going to be, I got an AC Delco. Is there a part number on this thing somewhere? GM part number, I guess, 19112977. Here's a new sensor, comes with O-ring. I figured while I'm in it, I might as well do it because I don't want to do it once. I sure don't want to do it twice. So I got that to be replaced. Oh man, don't drop this. Here we go. That came with a new O-ring. I'm going to put that in. I went ahead and removed this shield on the inside too. I guess it's just to stop oil from splashing around. I don't know. But it was filthy and it made it easier to clean that thing. So I'm going to go ahead and stick it back here in a minute. I'm just going to go over this stuff real fast because there's no way I can talk and install it back in this truck at the same time. I can barely install it without talking, much less trying to film. So I'm going to stick that back in there, put that new oil sensor in. I got a new gasket to go on there, obviously. Velpro OS 30693R. Now, I didn't know this until I pulled it off, but the old gaskets are riveted on. And all I did was drill it out. There's a spot right there and a spot right there. And of course, I don't care if I tear it up because it's trash anyway. But the new ones don't have the spots for the rivets, which is fine with me. I didn't want to go through the trouble of having to rivet it on there anyway. But all I did was put some tape on the side and make sure I tried to get as little bit of aluminum shavings in there as possible, and anything that was left, I cleaned it up because I sure don't want that in the engine. I cleaned up the oil pickup tube. Earlier, y'all saw how dirty this thing was. I don't even know how any oil was getting through this darn thing. But you can see it's way better than it was. I bet there wasn't a nickel size worth of clean space on this thing for oil to get through. Here's something else that I usually do when I'm taking stuff apart, but this thing was so dirty that I didn't do it right away. A good little trick is grab you one of these boxes you got laying around from the Jungle website, because I know y'all order everything off of there too. And I just make a little layout of bolts as I take them apart and label where they go. Like there's the oil pan bolts in front to back, and there's the rear ones, they're longer. Stuff for the oil pump, the plastic shield in the back, wire loom, bell housing, all that stuff's cleaned up and ready to go, so I'm not struggling with where bolts go and trying to figure out how they go. Because like I said, I don't even want to do it one time. I really don't want to do it twice. I think on this oil pump pickup tube, I took off 3 nuts for this thing, but it really only has 2. One there and one right there, and I think all I did was being in a hurry, I just took off too many. Because it just goes, one goes right there, and then the other one right there. I'm going to show this now because I can't do all this stuff and film it, but there's the corners where the block sides meet the back right there. You can kind of see a little line. There's 4 of them, 2 in the front and 2 in the back. I'm just going to spray some parts cleaner up in there, brake cleaner a few times, try to get as clean as possible, put some RTV, and let it set up and try to put this pan on after I put that oil pickup tube. I got to stick this new oil pump pickup tube O-ring. That's a mouthful. I got to stick this O-ring on this pickup tube, put a little bit of oil on it, and line it up with the oil pump right there. Get that mounted, put the RTV on there, and put the pan back, and hopefully that solves the problem. So we'll see if I can get this whole mess straightened out. Wish me luck. Just a little warning when you're putting that oil pickup tube up in the oil pump, that metal up there is kind of sharp. It got me right there. It doesn't look that bad on camera, but it is kind of deep. So be careful. That was about as much fun as I knew it wasn't going to be. But the oil pickup tube's on there, the oil pan's up on there. I got a little bit of that RTV in the corners, and the instructions say just to hand tighten it and let it set for an hour. So I got to wait, come back and torque it, then we'll fill it with oil. Tomorrow after 24 hours, crank it up, and pray to God that I have oil pressure. So I'm going to stop filming, let my phone charge, wait an hour to torque this, and sat there with extreme anxiety trying to remember if I put everything back the way it was supposed to go. Perfect. So here's where I'm at. I got the oil pan bolts torqued. I didn't see no need to film that. I don't think y'all would find that very interesting. It's just me standing up underneath there with the torque wrench and praying to God that I don't snap one of the bolts off. But I got them all torqued. The short ones in the front, I think were 18. The ones in the back, the long ones, were 106 inch-pounds, which I guess translates to about a 8.8 foot-pounds, or hand tight for me. And the back bell housing bolts I got in, I think those were 37 or so. Of course, all this is for entertainment, so, you know, check the specs and do yours by the book. Got the wiring harness back on there, oil filter on, drain plug, I hope. And now we're just gonna fill it up with some oil. Of course, this thing takes 6 and I only got 5, but it'll be enough to start this thing up and see if I have oil pressure. Pray to God. I think what I'm gonna do though, is I wanna prime the motor. I don't wanna just start it up dry. So it's either pull the fuel pump relay or pull the wiring harness connectors for the spark plugs. I think I'm going to do the spark plugs because if I pull the relay for the oil or the fuel pump, it may still have enough pressure on the line to try to light off for a few seconds, and I really don't want that. So I'm going to finish getting this filled up, make sure I don't have about 5 quarts of oil on the ground, and we'll see if I did it right. By the way, all the bolts went back. I didn't have any extra, which I think is a pretty good sign. That white plug right there with a little blue piece of plastic through it is the connector for the coil packs, by the way. All I did was pull that blue plastic to the side and then pop up on that little, not cap, but clip right there and pull straight up on it. All right, moment of truth. I'm gonna spin this thing over and see if we're gonna be able to build oil pressure, or I'm gonna find out everything I didn't tighten good enough. All right, so I got the oil pressure sending unit hooked up in the back of the motor with another love souvenir, I guess. Got the coil packs connected. So let's see what our oil pressure is. Let's hope for good oil pressure. Probably not. $40 pounds of pressure, I will take that. If I recall, when I checked it before I did all this, it was getting as low as 20 up here. So we've effectively doubled it. Let's see what happens if I give it a little gas. That's about 50. Since I've owned it, I've never seen it go as high as 50. It's usually topped out at 40. So I will take that. So I've let the truck idle now for about 10-15 minutes and get it up to operating temperature. We're right at around 210 degrees. And now that the oil's hot, we're showing a pressure of about 33, 35. Whereas before we was dropping all the way down to about 20. And when I give it a little bit of gas, like we was driving down the road, we're about 40, 45. So I'd say that's a lot better than we were before. Well, that's about it, y'all. I'm pretty happy with the results. I got better oil pressure than I did before. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go get some Marvel Mystery Oil or some kind of additive to help clean this motor out after seeing how sludged up it was, since I got to add a quart or something anyway. Probably run it for a few hundred miles, drop the oil one more time just to help clean this motor out. I still got a little bit of a ticking on the passenger side, which I think is pretty normal for these motors. I don't know. But anyway, if you made it this far, I want to say thank you for watching the video, and I hope you enjoyed it. I appreciate y'all taking the time to actually watch something that I made. And to all my subscribers that actually watch something that I make and say, hey, I want to see more of this guy. I appreciate that. It means the world to me. So I'll see y'all in the next one.